minutes behind, but we have a pretty compact agenda today. So I think if we get moving, we'll hopefully be able to achieve quorum by the time we are voting on essential issues. So I'd like to call the MetroPlan board meeting of June 10th, 2026 to order. If you could take the moment and silence your electronic devices. In addition, I'm asking everyone to speak directly into the microphone. I can say that proudly after having not turned on my own microphone first thing. It's okay. These are great systems, but it takes a second to remember that. For guests in the audience, we are also recording anything that's said at the microphone. If you have hearing impairments, please let us know. Lisa has, if someone can't be heard, if you could help make sure that they let us know that they're not able to hear us. We have two opportunities at these meetings for public comments. Public comments on action items that are on today's agenda are heard before we get to the action items, and then public comments of a general nature are near the end of the meeting. Anyone attending today's meeting in person and who wishes to make a public comment is asked to complete a speaker's card for a record. These are available at the reception desk and on the table near the door. Cards should be given to Lisa Smith. Members of the public who are attending online and wish to make a comment should fill out the electronic speaker's card. We want this and all future meetings to be accessible for all. Participants may join by computer, tablet, or phone. And if you need a special accommodation to participate, please do not hesitate to contact MetroPlan Orlando. I'm going to start by asking Commissioner Janer to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would also be remiss by not acknowledging this week is the 10-year remembrance of the Pulse tragedy. This is fast approaching us on Friday. It's a week of somber and solemn remembrance. Hug your people tighter. Help us continue to spread the love and unity, understanding there's still a lot of people suffering from that horrible event. And then we will now go straight into the TDLCB, the Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board, met on May 14th. Deputy Mayor Gilbert is not here this morning, but I understand that Mayor Bates does have a report to share with us this morning. Mayor Bates, you're recognized.
Thank you. Good morning. The TDLCB met Thursday, May 14th. Our action items included approval of the February TDLCB meeting minutes, approval of the FY 2026-27 annual TD rate calculations. We approved the Transportation Disadvantaged Service Plan minor update. We had some revisions to the TDLCB membership, which required an update to the membership certification. We also approved an update to the composition of the Quality Assurance Task Force to align with the recent changes in LCB membership. Our final action was approval of the 2025 CTC evaluation and TD Riders Survey authorization for staff to submit the final report to the Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged. We only had one presentation, which was a community transportation coordinator update from Access Links. The next quarterly TDLCB meeting is scheduled for August 20th, 2026 at 10 a.m. Madam Chair, that concludes our comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Are there any questions from the board? Not seeing any questions, we'll move on. Thank you so much for the report. As part of my chair reports, I did want to take a moment to update you all. The last meeting we talked about Orange County's work session on micromobility. The e-bikes and e-scooters, I think, continue to be it's a hot topic in everyone's jurisdictions. Frequent discussions, I think, with our constituents across the board. So the Board of County Commissioners held a work session to review policy recommendations that came from stakeholder engagement, several work group sessions, our emergency response teams, the school board, our healthcare systems, and others. I would like to make sure that I also acknowledge that Colton's mother, the young man who was tragically killed the week before our work session, actually attended and gave public testimony. I felt it was very courageous, and to see her continued participation and in finding meaning and trying to protect other children, I felt like touched our entire board. We spent several hours as a board discussing issues including safety study, infrastructure improvements, public education opportunities, lots of details, and I won't get into all of that, but we can make that presentation available to anybody who requests it, and it's of course all part of the public minutes. I do want to make sure that some of the key takeaways are illustrated here. User confusion seems to be sort of the overarching umbrella, and our regional inconsistencies. To tackle this, I think it would be good to look at or just work through regional policy framework by potentially establishing multidisciplinary interagency work group. The goal here is to improve data collection and local reporting of crashes and align responsibilities. I think everybody wants to know who's in charge of these situations, who's getting the information, collecting the information, storing the information, and using that information to change what happens next. With decision-making needs to be consistent and standard operating procedures across the board so that the public has some confidence in the way that we as local government and the MPO address the issue. We also want to make sure we're coordinating with all of the local agencies, including law enforcement, municipalities, so that we have all those voices included. We understand that that this is a problem that seems to be widely encompassing, but everyone's own municipality looks very different as far as the way that the issues are arising. I spoke with Gary last week about the possibility of convening a meeting of the 3 counties, law enforcement from each of the counties, the school board, and the intent of this meeting would be to develop language for potential action moving forward. If there's board agreement for us to work on this as a region, as a MetroPlan organizing situation, staff can begin to coordinate that effort. Wasn't sure if there were any questions about that, any comments? Okay. So we're going to move on to the safety moment. All these things very nice and neatly fit in.
Chair, did you want to share that you attended the MPOAC Institute?
Yes, I thought that we did that at the last meeting, but if not, I will say it again. And I like the idea of reiterating that. Yes, well, I was going to say that this is an ongoing opportunity for anybody to see that operational level about what the MPOs do across the state, and being able to sit there with people who are making some big decisions on these projects and communicating with staff quite frequently. We don't get to have those interactions very often and have the ability to exchange with other jurisdictions. So if you have not participated in the Institute, please consider doing that. I don't know if is there a date that is.
I believe there is a date for the next one. It's going to be in August in Gainesville. I'll find out the exact date in August.
So we have a chance to get that reminder out. Thank you so much.
I may have the privilege of sharing. So I just returned last night from Tulsa, Oklahoma at midnight, where we were at the National Association of Regional Councils, where we presented on the MPOAC Institute and MPOs and how we coordinate with elected officials and all the regions. And it was very, very successful. It's actually, we're pretty much one of the only models nationally, and we're pretty much, there was no other state present that has the state MPOAC where they coordinate as a state. So it was very enlightening. And a lot of folks actually requested the MPOAC Institute so they could start teaching their members in their respective regions across the nation. So it was really well. And they just realized they want their electeds to get more engaged, but it's so much information. So this is very, very good. And if you can't make it, we can always give you the information so that you can also learn it.
Yeah, it was I think an incredible opportunity. I feel that way about actually sitting on this board. The opportunity to be able to sit with you all from different jurisdictions, from our neighboring counties, and be able to look at such critical issues like micromobility, like our transportation.
I already picked up a nice tip this morning.
Yeah, it's an incredible opportunity, and I think being able to see it modeled throughout the country feels like it should be, don't reinvent the wheel, look what's working. I actually have two interns that are here today. I have a great internship class this summer. If you all just stand up and wave really quickly. I explained to them the importance of the metropolitan transportation planning and our regional planning and a regional approach, because anybody who's not in government already takes a regional approach, right? You get in your car and you just go where you need to go, or you get on your bike and you ride where you need to ride to. And it's on us to figure out the safety and the coordinating. And that's exactly what happens here. So thank you all for being here and for the collaborative efforts moving forward. And thank you for the update, Commissioner. So we'll move into the safety moment. At this point, we'll hear from Mike Wilson on this month's safety moment. This month, Mike is going to talk to us about seatbelt use. Imagine if that was controversial at some point. I try to tell this to people who are, a little wary of emerging technology. All right, Mike, take it away.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, everyone. I've covered seatbelts before, but I wanted to give some trend data, see how we're going on that. But if you'll recall, back in October, I showed you how we were seeing a big drop in fatalities due to reduced impairment. So anytime we look at our fatality trends, we have to keep that in mind because, right, that's a correlating factor. So when we looked at unrestrained drivers and then compared that to impairment, so overall, unrestrained drivers were down by 13% if we looked at the past 3 years compared to 2016 through 18, so which is great. And even better, looking at unrestrained passengers, but down by more than 50%, and unrestrained minors in the car, nearly 3/4 are down. So that's really great. But notice where the big drop came from. It came from impaired drivers, down by 50%, whereas unimpaired drivers, unrestrained, actually increased. So we're doing great on the impairment side, still need to work on the restraint side. And what we're seeing is that it's the younger drivers who were actually responsible for the big decrease in impaired driving, but they're not buckling up, right? So yes, buckling up yourself so we don't have to, unfortunately, buckle you into one of these. So that concludes my safety moment. Be happy to take any questions.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. That is, it's interesting. We got to do all the things. It's a multi-tiered approach for sure. Are there any questions or comments from board members? Yes.
I don't know if you're aware, but the 10-year-old nonprofit Always Wear Your Seatbelt that was started after some Boone students were killed because some of them did not have their seatbelt is actually sunsetting. So that program that is in the high schools will no longer exist. And that's very, very sad because they've been a huge part of that under 18 process and developing clubs. My daughter was a part of the club when she was at Bishop Moore, and they're no longer going to be around. So it's a very sad moment for that. Such a targeted campaign for 10 years of your high school students. So it's good to be aware and see if there's any opportunities out there to fill that gap.
Yeah, I think many of us serving have youth leadership councils or youth advisory groups, and maybe we take those things back to them and continue to disseminate that information so that we can try to prevent that type of outcome, knowing that we've got the technology. We just have to use it. So I have sort of I say pleasure, but it's sort of a bittersweet moment now about this particular safety update, because for those of you who are in the audience listening online, this is Mike's final board meeting. And as a advocate of safety and bicycling and pedestrian safety, I have just been a huge fan of Mike's work. And Mike has been with this organization since 1993 and became one of the original MetroPlan Orlando employees. I have always really, really appreciated the things that you have brought to this board. Before I was here, I'd listen in. Since being here, just to be able to work with you, it's been a true honor. Your passion for pedestrian safety, bicycle safety, it's evident. And I want to thank you so much for your commitment to Central Florida and all of the work that you've done. Would any board members like to make any comments at this time? Wishing Mike all the best in his future endeavors. All right.
I feel like we were just getting to know each other. And now you're gone. Congratulations.
That means we'll just see you out on the trail or something, right?
Well, only if you're out riding trails in Washington State.
Oh, that sounds like an invitation. Okay. You heard the invitation, right?
And Mike, you've done a great job with the safety moment. It's something we've tried to mirror at the MPOAC, and thank you for all that hard work and making it visible so people see that action in front of them.
Thank you.
And Mike, first of all, I'm not sure you're old enough to be retiring, but also thank you for clearing up why you spell your name the way you did. We were all curious and you told us, and you can go now. And
Right.
we're all very happy that we know that, but you really have done an incredible job. You're going to be missed at MetroPlan. Thank you for all you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Mike, you have anything that you want to say?
Well, I just want to say that, well, yeah, with over 30 years here, it's been an immense pleasure of having great colleagues to work with and having great leadership with Gary and especially and Harry Barley before him, who really, built the structure that we see here today. And all of you, the kind of leadership that you bring makes my job easier and more rewarding. And that's why I've stuck around as long as I have. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Stay in touch. And with that, I will thank you for this safety moment, another very critical, valuable piece, a nugget to take with us. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Hutland.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairwoman Wilson and board members. This morning we have one alternate with us. Commissioner Chapin is here representing the city of Orlando in place of Mayor Dyer, who could not be here. A little news from Washington, D.C. The House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee held a markup of the Build America 250 text back on May 21st. That $474 billion surface transportation reauthorization measure emphasizes policy reforms such as consolidation of programs and emphasis on formula-based funding over the discretionary funding that's such a large part of the current bill. The draft bill includes a good amount of what the Lot Coalition has been advocating for and was included in the Basics Act. I've talked about the Basics Act a number of times. The board has seen the Lot Coalition letter on that a number of times. But key MPO priorities reflected in the bill, excuse me, and connections to the Basic Act include major wins for local governments and for regions, increase in metropolitan planning funds. We refer to those as our PL dollars that pay staff salaries and kind of keep the lights on here. Eligible activities, local match requirements, access to the federal fiscal management information system, and a big one for us is the option to become direct recipients of the federal planning funds. Many of the larger MPOs around the country have been advocating for that for quite a while, and that's included in the Build America 250 Act. So we're very appreciative of that. MPOs across the country will continue to work with AMPO, NARC, and other members of the Lot Coalition as that moves forward, and I will continue to update the board on that. Just a few words about the Lake to Lake Regional Trail Project. I also talk about that at virtually every board meeting. The package has been submitted to the Office of Greenways and Trails. That was done last week, I believe, right after the board books went out. And it is included as an information item in your agenda packets this morning as agenda item 10C. You'll find that information. Our next leadership team meeting for the Lake to Lake Trail is scheduled for the morning of July 15th, and that will be here in the boardroom. And then that afternoon, following that leadership team meeting, we have a meeting scheduled with DOT District 5 in DeLand just for a briefing, and we made a commitment to keep them very much plugged into the work that we're doing. And then on the 16th of July, we're planning a tour of the corridor as well. Our consultant team has started staff interviews associated with the strategic plan that I mentioned at the May board meeting. Those we anticipate will be completed by the end of this month. And then after that, they will begin to interview the executive committee of the board and a select group of our advisory committee members. In your supplemental folders this morning, there are several items I want to draw your attention to. First, on the left is the fact sheet for the public opinion survey that you'll be hearing about later this morning. And then the other two items, both products of AMPO. One is the Build America 250 legislative guide, and it will go into some significant detail on what's included in that. And then the other is the OMB proposed uniform grants regulation that outlines some potential changes to how states and regions and MPOs are held responsible for the administration of federal funds. But both of those documents are still under review, so I will update you on that as well. Chairwoman Wilson, you mentioned Mike's retirement. This is the year of retirement. So in addition to Mike, another longtime MetroPlan employee is retiring this month. In fact, Friday of this week is her final day. And that is Mary Ann Horn, who has been managing the public information work for us. Mary Ann's last day, as I mentioned, is Friday. Mike will be with us through July 2nd. So we need to congratulate Mary Ann as well. Under agenda review, Secretary Tyler could not be here this morning, so there would not be an agency report on the agenda from DOT, and there are no other changes to the agenda.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hutman. And thank you, Mary Ann. I know you're like kind of ducking down back there, but your information that has provided us the basis for continued collaborative effort is so critical in your work. Happy retirement. Happy for you, a little sad for us for all these great announcements. And thank you so much for the time that you've devoted. So it's time now for a roll call and confirmation of quorum. Do we want to move this to the committee report?
I believe we can go ahead and have the confirmation of quorum. There is no, yeah, we know the outcome of that, but I believe we should go ahead.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Lisa.
Commissioner Anderson,
Present.
Bates,
Here.
Constantine, Gomez Cordero,
Here.
Delari, Demmings, Commissioner Chapin for Mayor Dyer,
Here.
Mayor Espinosa, Gilbert, Grebe, Janer,
Here.
Kapalusas,
Here.
Mayor,
Here.
Scott, Commissioner Simrad is here. Okay. Dallas for Smith,
Here. Here.
Mr. Stephen Smith, Commissioner Ortiz, Commissioner Uribe,
Present.
Commissioner Wilson,
Present.
Mayor Woodruff.
Here.
Madam Chair, that concludes the roll call, and we do not have a quorum physically present. We're one member short of a quorum.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Smith. We will move to committee reports, and I obviously have to hold off on votes until or when we have quorum.
John Dallison for Commissioner Smith. The Municipal Advisory Committee met last Thursday, June 4th. At the meeting, MAC approved our May 7th meeting minutes. MAC received 3 presentations. We received a presentation on the draft transportation improvement program, including information on how the draft plan is being shared with the public. We received a presentation on the draft prioritization project list. And finally, we received a status report presentation on 2 projects being led by Florida's Turnpike Enterprise. MAC meets next July 2nd, and that concludes my report.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Any questions for Municipal Advisory Committee? All right, we'll move on to the Community Advisory Committee. Ms. Judy Pizzo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning to the members of the board. I am Judy Pizzo, Chairman of the Community Advisory Committee. At our May 27th meeting, the CAC welcomed 2 new members, 1 MetroPlan Orlando board appointee and 1 Seminole County appointee. The committee heard presentations on the draft transportation improvement program, including information on how the draft plan is being shared with the public. We also heard presentation on the draft prioritization project list and a status update on 2 projects from the Florida Turnpike Enterprise. And as Mr. Gary Hutman had mentioned, after the committee business was concluded, we participated in a farewell reception to our staff liaison, Miss Marianne Horn, who's going to be greatly missed. Thank you. Our next CAC meeting will be held on June 24th, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much, Ms. Pizzo. Are there any questions regarding the Community Advisory Committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to Technical Advisory Committee and Mr. Miles O'Keefe.
Good morning, Chair and board members. The TAC met a few weeks ago on May 29th. Like the other advisory committees, we met in person with the physical quorum present. We had 1 action item and we unanimously approved the April 24, 2026 meeting minutes. We did have 3 common presentations that we shared with the TISMO. Presentation on the draft transportation improvement program, a presentation on the draft prioritized project list, and a status update presentation from the Florida Turnpike Enterprise on a couple of their projects. We did not have any TAC-only presentations, and we did not receive any public comments. Our next meeting is June 26th at 10 a.m., and this concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. O'Keefe. Are there any questions for our TAC committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Transportation System Management and Operations Advisory Committee and Ms. Christina Colon.
All right. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. The Transportation System Management and Operations, or TISMO Advisory Committee, met on May 29th, 2026. We had a light agenda. The only item we approved was the minutes for the April 24th meeting, and the only presentation was on the Signal 4 crash database by Dr. Hilaire Billeri of University of Florida. But this was actually a very important presentation and very timely with the conversations that you're having with e-bike and all of us are having with micromobility, as it focused on updates to improve accuracy and timeliness of crash data. And we did talk a lot about e-bike and micromobility crash data and the new legislation that will require that crash reports specifically highlight e-bike details and micromobility details within the crash reports. He also described updates in data flow related to the geolocation tools that have been developed and used by law enforcement to more accurately map these crash locations and where they're happening. And a tool also shortening the crash reporting time. And while the tool improves the accuracy and timeliness of the system, only about 50% of the law enforcement agencies are using it. And his suggestion was that TISMO members raise awareness about the benefits of the updated system. And so we'll be doing that. It saves reporting time and it's no cost and improved data quality. The other item kind of building onto the micromobility crash information is Dr. Billeri is fully aware of the new legislation, and he is one of them actively working with the DHSMV on including micromobility into the crash reports and having the extra check boxes and all those kinds of things. So in the short term, because it may take a little bit of time to get the formal reports approved and through the DHSMV, he is working with them on a narrative of kind of looking at the crash reports, the historical crash reports, utilizing AI tools to find some keywords in the long forms to pull out things like e-bikes or electric scooters, things like that, to give us some of that historic data that's not so easily extracted. So the next meeting for TISMO Advisory Committee is June 26, 2026 at 8:30. And this concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cologne. That just reinforces the, I think, movement by this MPO in that direction, and having staffs work with each other on seeing if we can fill those gaps and
Yeah.
continuing to utilize that available. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for that important update.
Yeah.
We'll move into public comments on action items at this time. Ms. Smith, are there any public comments?
Not for this portion of the meeting, but I have some at the end.
We might be there quicker than we wanted to be. All right, thank you. We do not have a quorum, so we will not be voting at this time on consent. Mr. Hutman, is there an action item that I need to take?
No, we can go straight to the presentations and then come back to the consent and the information items for acknowledgement. If someone shows up.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. If you have a buddy that's on the board, call them now. We will move straight into presentations, starting out with the preview of the 26-27 TIP Transportation Improvement Program.
Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. Natalia Barber, MetroPlan Orlando. Today, I'll give you a preview on the TIP 27 to 31. So let's start with a quick refresher on what the TIP is. It's updated annually, and it sets the schedule for transportation improvements over the next 5 years. It assigns available funding to different transportation projects for all modes of transportation. It includes several types of funding from federal, state to turnpike enterprise, as well as partner-funded projects and CFX. The TIP this year is a little bit different than previous years because it was updated for consistency with the Long-Range Transportation Plan, which is 2050 MTP. How it fits in our core products: first MTP is created, then projects are prioritized. You'll learn about that in a minute, and then they end up on the TIP. That's all the available funding distributed over a variety of projects. TIP has organization, is organized in different sections, and the most important is of course the financial section and the 10 project listing sections. Now we're going to dive into it. I'm going to keep it brief for the sake of time. So the biggest section is the interstate and the national highway system projects. It's 30 projects for 1.5 billion. And these projects include interstate highway projects, strategic intermodal systems, and moving Florida forward interchange improvements. The next really large category is the state highway system projects. That's 118 projects total for about roughly $1 billion. And MetroPlan contributes to 7 of those projects, $50 million in funding. Aviation section includes projects on 3 airports regionally, and that's a total of 14 projects for $236 million. Urban corridor improvements, these are all the projects that relate to off the state highway system locations, and they improve non-motorized modes of transportation. MetroPlan Orlando contributes to 11 out of 12 projects, half the funding for $46 million out of 82. Active transportation projects, those are going to be bicycle and pedestrian improvement projects. 10 projects, MetroPlan Orlando contributes to 9 of them. Again, roughly half the funding, $32 million. TISMO projects aim to implement innovative strategies and incident management, corridor management. 13 projects in total in this section for $51 million, and MetroPlan Orlando contributes to all 13 of them for $23 million in funding. Regional transit, large category for $600 million in funding. 26 projects in total you'll find in this section for operation and capital improvements. MetroPlan Orlando contributes to 2 of those projects, 44 million. Toll road, this section is in the tip for informational purposes only. It includes almost $1 billion in funding and 38 projects, and those are going to be capacity improvement and maintenance projects. Partner-funded projects, again, just for informational purposes, we collected these data from our partners, included them in the tip, and that's over 100 projects for, again, nearly $1 billion in funding. This is the breakdown of the tip. Over $3 billion in federal and state-funded projects. There are 230 of those projects, and this is how the funding is broken down. However, there is a natural overlap that one project could address multiple issues. This is the MetroPlan's Orlando funding distribution. It mostly fits in 4 categories between active transportation, TSMO, transit capital, not transit operations, and then urban corridor improvements, 145 million in funding over the next 5 years. There are multiple ways to participate, and we kicked off these efforts last week. We went to Orange County. Yesterday, we went to the library in Osceola, and we provided opportunity to the public to comment on what their needs are and on the tip. So we provide multiple of these opportunities throughout the tip season. Next week, we're heading to Sanford Welcoming Center to talk to people there, and we will present you the comments that we were able to receive in July. What are the next steps? We are collecting the comments, preparing the final document for the vote in July. AJC partner comments were requested by June 5th, and we will present it to you all in the next meeting. I'll be happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, Ms. Barber. I think this is a call to action by us to the public. You have till July 8th to make public comment. A great deal of information for people to be able to access and then give their feedback on. Are there any questions from the board at this time? Yes.
Okay.
Recognize.
So I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, but as we were at our meeting for NARC, we talked about the property tax rollback. And if we don't have as much funding as regions, then we may not be able to fund fully the MetroPlan Orlando. And this is a 5-year plan with an expectation of hundreds of millions of dollars in deficit for the county and the regions, all 3 counties respectively. So has that conversation been had yet to know what that implication could be? Because one of the things that we discussed in Oklahoma was we may not be able to fund MetroPlan to its fullest ability as we've been doing now if there are going to be cutbacks, because cutbacks are going to be going on countywide. And we believe even Seminole County is currently meeting to see what that's going to look like. And knowing that Orange County is 62% of the funding for the region, it could have a serious impact.
Thank you for the question, Commissioner Uribe. I will just start answering, and then maybe someone from my team will chime in if I missed anything. So we are very cautious with allocating our funding. So if there's anything, as far as I'm concerned, there are some reserves to be able to support these projects, and we're actively monitoring how that will impact long term. From what I'm aware right now, there's not any solid information I can offer you, but we'll definitely be on top of that. If there's, Alex wants to chime in.
I'll just add very briefly, the majority of the funds that you see in the Transportation Improvement Program are gas tax derived federal and state transportation dollars. As you look into the section of the tip, we call it the partner funded projects. Those are local municipality implemented projects, whether they come from your gas tax, a sales tax, or from general fund by way of ad valorem taxes. So that's the section where there likely be the strongest or greatest impact as it relates to our Transportation Improvement Program. You mentioned, the county is also contributing to MetroPlan Orlando for local funds. That doesn't find its way into the tip in the same project side. It's more into our UPWP. But also when you look at each of the projects, especially off of the state highway system, many of those projects MetroPlan Orlando supports with federal funds, like SU. These are urban area funds that we receive as an MPO. In most cases, projects that are designed by our local governments have costs that are ineligible for federal and state dollars. You might want a mast arm where federal funds can only pay for, strand wire. So those are the implications, the project specific design implications that we're going to see. So we can certainly identify each of those projects that do have a local match and what that match is paying for. But oftentimes the local match on these off-state highway system projects, non-exclusively local projects, are paying for features that federal and state funds are ineligible to cover.
Right. And I want to just follow up on that, but we also know our gas tax is flat and it's actually decreasing. And there was actually a presentation exactly on how these federal funds and how they're using the interest to help compensate the operational funds and things like that. So there was some really creative, people are going to have to get creative with federal and state funding, especially now more than ever. And it was interesting. One region, I think over 20 years, had made $19 million in interest that they were able to adjust and be able to offset. So we're going to have to be very, very creative with these numbers now and maximize every usage of what we can use those funds for or derivatives from it. So thanks.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. You're recognized, Commissioner Semrad.
Thank you so much, Natalia. I had one question regarding the agreement that's done because it is a 5-year time span within the agreement, and because this is an unprecedented vote that we're going to be seeing on the November ballot. In the event that the property tax reform does pass, is there language or can there be language within the agreement that any commitment of payment from the supporting shareholder stakeholders, local municipalities, local funding partners. Thank you, Commissioner. Can we get the money back? I heard what you said, and it's great that it sounds like MetroPlan has a large amount of its funding secure, so that's great. But from our perspective, internally thinking outward, if we make a commitment to 5 years and we need that money, quite frankly, we want it back to be able to decide where best to allocate it, because there will be many services that will require funding gaps to be filled. So can we get that language added in this type of new agreement?
I think that's something that can be considered as the board takes action on the TIP, but I think it's also important to acknowledge, the TIP is a 5-year document. It goes current year, beginning in July 1. And those are really the only monies, year 1 and year 2 of the Transportation Improvement Program. Those are really, I hate to call them real monies, but that have been approved and are really focused. Year 3, 4, and 5 of the TIP are really for planning purposes. Obviously, those funds haven't been approved through the legislative process just yet. So we bring this back every year intentionally, the focus on those first 2 years, but of course, with transportation, we're always, it's a long game, especially for project development. So we're always, thinking about what's next in that 4th and 5th year. But this document does come back every year annually. So the board can take action on that specific to every project. And you probably see these on each of your council or commission agendas. You're approving what's called a local agency program agreement, a LAP agreement between your jurisdiction and the Florida Department of Transportation. And that's really the MetroPlan's programming the funds in cooperation with DOT, but that's that LAP agreement, that contractual document is really the mechanism for the type of language that you're referring to, Commissioner, to be put in there, because that's the real contractual financial agreement that speaks of what's eligible, who's going to pay for what, and how those funds would be reimbursed and transferred.
Okay, and then just for clarification, the LAP comes to this board annually, correct?
The transportation improvement, as you see it, all 400 plus projects comes to the MetroPlan Orlando board annually. The Orange County specific projects, the projects that are being implemented and managed directly by Orange County Public Works or the Orange County staff while using federal funds, those are the project specific that would come to the Orange County Commission for you to take action on that LAP agreement. So it'd be, let's say West Orange Trail project that has a couple different kinds of monies. Because Gary mentioned the direct recipient relationship earlier, the funds actually flow to DOT. MetroPlan Orlando board prioritizes those funds, and then they're being administered by DOT through the local agency program of the state. So that's for a project specific. So again, we have 350 projects in the TIP. The projects that are on the front end of the TIP, kind of in the next 2 years, that's where the state actually enters into a local agency agreement with the county, with any of the jurisdictions that are implementing a project. And that's where, again, a lot of the language that you're referring to would probably be best fitting, is in that actual contractual document. The TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program, and the prioritized project list are really planning products that advise or give DOT direction to, actual programming of funds in the tentative work program.
Okay, and then just a follow-up, just because it is public record and for anybody who's listening, in the first year, Orange County looks at losing $160 million. So when we talk about these long-term projects and commitments, and then in just 1 year, 160 million wipeout, I just hope that people who listen understand that there's a lot of consequences to that type of budget restructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I was going to say it would have been nice to have some of that analysis before slapping it on a ballot. At this point, we're going to try to make sure we continue to communicate whatever we know at every level and at every opportunity, understanding the not just local impacts, regional impacts, statewide impacts. Any other questions before Ms. Barber? Thank you so much. All right, now we'll be moving to the preview of the 2026 prioritized project list, the PPL. Mr. Slade Downs, you are recognized.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair and Board. As you just mentioned, I'm here to give you the rundown on this year's annual prioritized project list update. So, like the TIP, which you just heard about, the prioritized project list is updated annually. So Natalia just finished giving you a lot of information about the TIP, the 5 years covered in that document. Unfortunately, all of our transportation needs are not fully funded in that short time frame, and that's where the PPL kicks in. All of our not yet funded projects and project phases over the 10 years following the TIP are covered within the PPL, running from 2032 to 2042. It basically is a document that identifies what's next, what's up next, what's on deck for funding coming soon. The PPL focuses on federally and state funded projects, and it is structured and consistent with the board's funding policies and the 2050 MTP's cost feasible projects. So the PPL covers 8 different funding categories, which is where we get our 8 separate project lists. These lists are structured based on federal and state funding sources and their eligibility considerations. And I'll walk you through a quick rundown of each of these, but first, wanted to mention, we do update this every year, but this year it's had a bit of a deeper refresh to align with the newly adopted 2050 MTP. The document may look a little bit different before, hopefully a bit more approachable, a bit more readable, but please be assured these are the same projects that you saw in the MTP that was adopted back in December. So this is an example table of what you'll see in the PPL. This is how all of the tables are structured, and I wanted to take you on a quick walkthrough so you can, have all the tools ready to read the document. So the first column here is the project rank, where it ranks on that individual list. Next, we have the roadway, facility, trail, transportation improvement, followed by the financial identification number and our MTP ID number. Next is the project limits, the actual geographic limits of the project. The project description, just as it sounds, is what the improvement consists of. Under phase request, this is the actual request for what phase of the project is needed. So where it says maintain, that means that funding has been allocated already for that phase. Where it says program, that is us requesting funding for those upcoming project phases. And then finally, funding requests, those are the actual costs associated with the improvement. So now I'll walk you through a very quick rundown of these project lists. First up, we have the interstate highway system and strategic intermodal system. There's been a lot of progress on I-4 in recent years, but there's definitely still more work to be done in the region, and this is where you'll find those projects. Next up, we have the state roads and state highway system. This includes the full range of project types on non-tolled state roads, everything from roadway widening to technology improvements. Next, we have TRIP, the Transportation Regional Incentive Program. It's a state discretionary funding program. This state program has specific funding match requirements, which are noted on the right side of the slide. But our approach in recent years has been to request state TRIP funds to supplement federally funded local LAP projects. Next, we have our high injury network safety improvements. This is a direct result of our Vision Zero efforts to bring traffic-related deaths and serious injuries down to zero. This list implements the board's policy for safety-focused project funding as a means for local agencies to implement regional and local safety action plans off the state highway system. Next, we have our urban corridor improvements list, which includes multimodal roadway projects off the state highway system. You may know these colloquially as complete streets projects. The verbiage has changed a little bit, but it is those same high quality improvements. Next, the active transportation list projects include infrastructure intended for pedestrians and cyclists, all of those who walk, bike, and roll. This set of projects include multi-use paths near roadways, regional trails that connect neighborhoods and cities, and projects to fill in gaps in our sidewalk network. We have a longstanding history of transportation systems management and operations priorities, TSMO, you may have heard it called. These projects focus on optimizing the performance of existing roads rather than building new roads or adding lanes. This is accomplished by innovative intersection improvements and technology deployments. And lastly, we have our regional transit priority list, which is derived from the 2050 MTP's cost feasible plan. Our number one priority remains to connect Sunrail to Orlando International Airport, and also Lynx's southern operation base. So as far as next steps, just like Natalia with the tip, we've been asking for feedback on the draft PPL in front of you. We had a cutoff deadline for that feedback on June 5th. We heard from a lot of members of your staff and the public, so we're incorporating that feedback right now, and we'll bring it back to you with those edits included at the next meeting, and we'll be asking for adoption at that time in July. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Slade Downs. Any question from the board, from any comments, feedback? Acronym glossary.
For sure.
Where would somebody go to that if they wanted to figure all that out? Is there a place?
For sure. So in both the TIP and the PPL, there's an acronyms page. I know we have the alphabet soup going as with every government agency. Yeah. So at the beginning of those documents, there is an index of terms.
Thank you so much. And I will tell you, I'm grateful for that. I just want to make sure we said it again on the record, because I think a lot of people see a presentation or hear us speaking and they think I'm never going to figure out what this is. There's too many letters involved. At my office, we call it the ABCs, the BCC, but
I like that.
Understanding that there's a glossary, and then after a couple times of recognizing what that is, it does become a little more familiar in reading through things. If that is it, I think.
No,
sorry.
Again, looking at some of the small print of the 50% local match and things like that, I think it behooves the agency to really start looking at what this is going to mean locally, financially. When we're looking at such a steep cut, and you look at some of our counties surrounding us and a lot of the cities who are primarily funded through residential property tax, there's a serious impact of how local government's going to have to look at things. And I really think that MetroPlan Orlando needs to kind of, as all of us are looking at Plan B, C's, and D's, I think the agency also. And I understand how we rely a lot on federal and state dollars, but it's only going to trickle. It's not like everyone else is going to get fully funded and just the local folks are the only ones that are going to see the impact. And I think we have to be cautious because those are very huge bills. You're talking billions of dollars. And when you look at maintenance, new projects, you look at all of those things coming together. There's just a lot that's you're just going to wonder, even as FDOT is always being cut, what is that going to look like, for the future? So when you see 50% local match, that makes me nervous. Like, what's our plan B here?
For sure. Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner. I should add for additional context, that 50% match is only required for the trip prioritized list. It's not required for the others, but definitely valid concerns that are definitely good to bring up at this time.
I agree. And I thank you so much, because I do think sort of illustrating that we don't really even know yet what those full impacts might be for those specific things, because we haven't really had enough time to parse it out to that level. And needless to say, because we haven't gotten past whether or not that's the decision that Florida's making yet, it's hard to really get to stating publicly what a consequence is, but we can say potential, or what we would see as a revisiting of some of these projects. I think the important piece would be to try to maybe explain how the trickle into the projects are. Mr. Hutman, you're recognized.
Yeah, just to follow up on Commissioner Uribe's comments or concern, the 50% local match for the trip funds we can use our federal, what we call our SU dollars, is considered local for matching trip funds.
So that's not restricted then. That can be the local match can be the,
yes.
Okay, that's actually, we can take a little a breather. I know that, obviously the priority list becomes a little skinnier, as we look at some of those, but I think understanding the importance of all those things that are on there. Thank you so much. Without any other questions, we'll move to, thank you, Mr. Downs. We'll move. Sorry, public opinion survey results. Ms. Sarah Strickhauser. You're recognized.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Board. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Sarah Strickhauser. I'm the president of Summit Survey Research, and I served as the principal researcher, excuse me, on the 2026 Regional Transportation Survey. So we're here today to run through some of the key results, which are all very interesting and exciting, but the full report will be out shortly online. So a little bit about who we spoke with. We spoke with 2,536 residents of Orange, Osceola, Seminole County through a survey. The survey was open this spring. That's March 9th through April 19th. It was open to the public through April 10th. We did keep it open a little longer for some of our other methods. Our main methods of data collection were an online panel, a public survey, and intercept surveys. Intercept surveys are iPad surveys happening out in the field across all 3 counties. The MetroPlan Orlando communications team did both public outreach digitally and in person. So you have some of those examples here of the MetroPlan Orlando team in action. I love these pictures. And of course, some of the social media posts. The communications team here at MetroPlan Orlando did work with 42 agencies directly to disseminate survey information. That includes the link, and they are listed here, and we're very grateful for their participation and support. So into some of the results, we ask people right off the bat, how do you get around the Orange, Osceola, Seminole County region while you're here, so not while you're on vacation somewhere else, and in the last 12 months. Residents are allowed to select all that apply for them, and you have all this is on your one-page sheet too to take home. Our most common modes of transportation that we found: driving, walking, and rideshare. Least common down for access links, automated shuttles, and standard and electric wheelchairs. We had a new category this year, microtransit. right? So that's those smaller trips and public transportation for those of you unfamiliar with the term. We also had new categories in 2024. We had Brightline for the first time, electric scooters and e-bikes for the first time. Those categories are now separated. You can imagine why we're wanting to look more into each of those separately, and automated shuttles was new in 2024. Just a note, because I was curious, and I think it would be helpful to you too, to know that 80% of the people we spoke with selected more than one mode. That might have just been driving and walking, but you can kind of think about most people are using more than one means of transportation. So they're multimodal, even if it's just every now and again. And there are just 15% of the people that we spoke with that say, I only drive. So I think it's easy to think, oh, it's just driving, everybody's driving, and that's just not what we see with the people that we spoke with. So once we know how people get around the region, we ask them, what are your top barriers? What are your top challenges? If you're a pedestrian, what are they? Also, if you say, I don't walk to get anywhere I need to go, we still ask you, what are your top barriers? What are your top challenges? As somebody who's a potential walker, potential cyclist. So we call out here the top challenges for pedestrians and for cyclists. So for pedestrians, we see that there's this desire for more sidewalks, improved sidewalks. For cyclists, more bike lanes. Sometimes the trips are just too far to take a bike. But I want to take a pause to call out that this sense of feeling safe around other drivers and a worry about unsafe driver behavior is a top challenge. We see it for pedestrians. We see it for cyclists. We also see it for people who are not currently walking and biking. You can kind of imagine that as a barrier. But what is not on the slide is that it's a top barrier for drivers. And I think it's a really interesting thought, right? That yes, I drive and I'm a good driver, but I'm worried about unsafe drivers on the road too. So if it's drivers, it's cyclists, it's pedestrians, it's a lot of people worried about unsafe driver behavior. And we'll come back to that. We'll take a pause for a safety win. I hope Mike appreciates the safety win. We have awareness for the RRFB on the left, rectangular rapid flashing beacon, and the pedestrian hybrid beacon on the right of the slide. So we showed the residents' images and just asked, have you seen the sign? Have you seen this light? Awareness is a good first step to knowing how to use these. 90% have seen the sign on the left, 66% have seen the light on the right, and that's an increase since 2024 when we asked that. 90% is almost everybody, very exciting. And we see this increase across all 3 counties. So awareness certainly growing. And just a fun remembrance that 2020 was the first time the region had a pedestrian hybrid beacon on OBT in 2020. So that's 6 years ago. So that's, that feels like not all that long ago. These didn't even exist in the region. There's still a growing confidence in whether or not the driver is going to obey the sign and light. So we basically see a 50-50 split between, I think they're going to do what they're supposed to do, and then the other 50% are not sure, or just sure they're not going to obey the light or sign. So we'll keep track of that over the years. So we ask about e-bikes, we ask about electric scooters, or what we're calling or electric micromobility. So those shorter first and last mile trips to transit, commuting. And we find that 11% of people check e-bike. I use an e-bike to get where I'm trying to go. 8%, or nearly 1 in 10, are using electric scooters. So a little bit about who those people are. This is basically all we asked. Do you use it? We didn't ask any follow-up questions. We didn't, really try to understand exactly who these people are, but it was curious to us, are they all young people? No, they're not all the young. There's a wide variety of age and geographic location for people using these. And we also wanted to know, are e-bike users and electric scooter users, are they the same people? And they're really not. So e-bike users don't tend to say they use electric scooters. So when we think about planning, we can think about these populations as different with different experiences. So like I said, we didn't have a lot of follow-up questions, but we had other questions that had nothing to do with e-bikes or electric scooters, and people are talking about e-bikes when they're answering other questions. So we're asking a question about links and somebody's talking about their e-bike and they want to get their e-bike onto the links bus. We're asking about doctor's appointments that we'll talk about in a second, and they're thinking about how they could have maybe used an e-bike to get to the appointment. So we call that out. And of course, on the left, the concern around safety is, as I know you all are discussing. But we call that out to showcase the fact that these e-bikes are already incorporated into the daily experiences of people moving around the region in all kinds of ways. So I said we'd come back to unsafe driver behavior. We saw that as a top barrier, a top challenge for pedestrians, for cyclists, and then also for drivers. In 2024, we didn't ask this question again because there was such consensus, but in 2024, we found 94%, so almost everybody says, I want to live in a bike and pedestrian-friendly community. So we didn't even ask it, we get it, like that's what people want. However, there's this concern and this barrier for unsafe driver behavior. But then there's this sort of third piece to the puzzle, and it's certainly a challenge we know for planners, and we're calling it out to show that we get it. It is a challenge that a lot of the people that are worried about unsafe drivers probably are unsafe drivers. So we had 60% of people that engage in at least one risky behavior. At least in this survey, we're asking about, do you think it's okay to text and drive? Do you agree or strongly agree? And some people do. Do you regularly speed? Do you feel like it's okay to speed when the roads are clear? And then the fourth one that I'm always like, oh, nobody will admit to this, but this idea of road rage. In the last 12 months, I've driven aggressively in response to another driver on the road, and it's a yes. And this 60%, this is just the people who are admitting to this kind of stuff. So you might imagine it's even higher. So we can see the conflict for people. They have a goal for the environment that they want to live in. And then they also have, their personal behavior challenges. So considering all of those in conflict. We asked residents, have you skipped or missed a doctor's appointment in the last 12 months, specifically due to a transportation issue? So because you didn't have reliable transportation. This year, 1 in 5 say yes, they have. It was 1 in 4 last time we did this at 25%. This year, it's 20%. We don't see any major differences across county. So geographically, this is about the same for the people that we spoke with. I think it's helpful to think about, before we get to the themes, because this is an exciting follow-up question that we have, but thinking about why people are, well, we'll go to that. We had an exciting follow-up question. For those people who said yes, they have missed an appointment, we basically said, what happened? Why? Because that was sort of this question from 2024. So what is the story behind I didn't get to the appointment? And it's easy to, sort of make assumptions. It might have been this, it might have been that. But I want to call out, in the almost 500 responses that we had to that specific question, the reasons people don't get to appointments are just as varied as the way people get around. So if I have a car, I might have a potential car challenge. If I have a car and sometimes I take the bus and then I walk, their story might have been, I had a challenge with each of those, and it was just unexpected. So I think it's helpful to think, just as varied as it is, the way people get around, those are the challenges. They can be very varied. So the missed medical appointment, when we think about the themes and we're reading all of the responses and counting what are the themes, the top thing mentioned was distance to the appointment. Now, we cannot change where clinics are necessarily through this board, but this distance, if you think about the story of like what happened, how did you miss this appointment? We have to start the story with potentially the clinic was very far away. The hospital was very far away. And so now the odds of something happening and disrupting that trip, kind of are increased. And on top of that, we're talking about a doctor's appointment with a very small window of time to get there. So if something disrupts your 1 or 2 or 3 modes of transportation, the appointment is missed. So certainly we heard about transit and bus challenges, bus hitting traffic, same thing with vehicles. The car didn't start. We share a car in the household and my wife needed it and I didn't expect that. So that was definitely part of the varied stories we saw. When it comes to high costs as a theme, also very interesting. I cannot believe how many people mentioned rideshare as this thought. It's part of their story. I thought about rideshare as this like last ditch effort to get to the appointment. but it was too expensive. So rideshare is seen as an option, but it's really not. It's not viable. And then some mobility challenges for those in a wheelchair or who experience pain, missing appointments. So certainly an interesting question. We get to ask about emerging technologies on this survey, which is always kind of fun to see what's up and coming. So not all that long ago, we were just asking about fully electric vehicles for the first time. And now that's old hat. We see interest in fully electric vehicle purchase has stayed pretty constant. We saw this sort of spike up for people who said, I'm buying one in the next 12 months. But that's probably, we did ask these questions right as gas prices were skyrocketing. So that's probably part of that story. We also continue to ask about driverless vehicle comfort and sharing the road with driverless vehicles. That has also increased. People are still interested in driverless buses. They still think there should be an attendant on that bus. But we see those emerging technologies, there's comfort growing there. This year, we asked about two new technologies, advanced air mobility, and we gave the example of air taxis, and then unmanned aerial vehicles or UAVs. We gave the example of cargo drones. And we just want to see, have they heard of them? And if they have, is there a positive, negative sentiment? Not all that many people have heard of them, but this is good baseline information. We'll track over time. And it's pretty mixed about how people feel about these technologies. Of course, we ask about public transportation and what people want to see in that. We have over many years, and we see, of course, a lot of the same things, but we know it's important to continue to reiterate that as you work to develop more stops and stations and faster service and address the service on nights and weekends for things like Sunrail, those continue to be the top desires of residents in the region. I mentioned we looked at microtransit, asked people, have you used it? We defined it for them, that local on-demand app-based transit. So 1 in 10 people saying they have used microtransit, the largest share of those coming from Seminole County. And our last topic about funding, certainly an important topic currently. So we ask, would you support improvements in transportation if it required an increase in taxes, fares, and fees? This is the first question in the funding section of the survey. And we always get people saying, yeah, I think I could get behind that. And so this has been over many years. We see the majority of people do support it. It's a little different across the counties. But we ask, some follow-up questions. If you're willing to support it, what might that look like? So we give them a list. What about this tax? What about this fare? Increasing this and increasing that. And that's, it sort of wanes a little bit once you get into the details. So as we've seen in the past, the visitor-based fee is always the most popular. 70% of people say, I support a visitor-based fee being increased. We know that would take policy change to implement, but we like to gauge the appetite for that. But the next most common acceptable increased taxes were sales tax and then the local tolls. But that acceptance was around 43%, so not quite the 70% of the visitor-based fees. And then the least popular was an increase in property tax. So we'll see how that plays out in the story. And then the very last question, we added this one for the first time this year to kind of get out of the weeds of how should we fund things? And we just say, if we had available funds, how would you like to see it spent? And so this year, this is what we find. It's really a big focus on transit, roadway maintenance, as you all have talked about here recently. Those are all part of the plan moving forward. So we hope these results are helpful. This 2,536 survey respondents, this is a way for us to try to give them a voice to you in a very concise, short period of time as you move through making decisions. So our contact information here, the survey, the full report will be available very soon. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you so much. I want to apologize for not recognizing you as Dr. Sterkhauser. Thank you, Dr. Sterkhauser. I will tell you, I just want to compliment the MetroPlan team. This is a digestible format for results of a survey that could have been, I'm seeing some acknowledgement. Please just take the compliment as somebody who we work really hard to communicate in our spheres, and to see something this digestible about what is a complex issue, what I know took so much more time. This is in your supplemental information in the folder, but we'd also like, I'll speak for myself, a digital copy. We would love to be able to share this. I know we promoted people participating in this. I want to also recognize and acknowledge the work meeting people where they are, actually getting out to do the survey and sort of coming at it from more than one approach. Because I think to the point of, we were saying up here earlier, we have a meeting and there's always people who have an issue or a concern or a problem coming to this. And that's right. We want to hear from them, but it doesn't give us a full picture. And so, having put in a protected bike lane somewhere and then hearing complaints at the next meeting, we would think that maybe that wasn't what somebody wanted, but then seeing a result that has a better statistical significance gives us indication that we're moving in the right direction. And quite frankly, this data shows us that we're moving in the right direction. Before I ask for questions, I also wanted to make a quick comment about when you took a look at those greatest concerns and you said drivers were even the most concerned with other drivers. That shows with the pedestrian and cyclists, I think, injuries, fatalities, because drivers are looking for drivers. Drivers are looking for drivers at those left turns. They're looking for drivers when they pull. So they're not looking for those pedestrians and vehicles. And so, many times after an event, talking to somebody that was in that event, they'll say, the car was zooming. I didn't even see somebody in that bike lane, because they're looking for those dangerous drivers. They're not scared of a bicyclist. So it's just sort of an interesting, I think, feedback that I had been able to get. And with that, I'm going to open up for questions. I think Commissioner Janer, you're recognized.
Thank you. First of all, ditto, I share the thoughts that this is very impressive, great information and easy to digest. I was wondering, do you have these responses and percentages by county? Because if you do, I'd love to see that for Osceola County and get that to our transportation department, because I think that this information is very valuable. One of the things that, I've thought about during the last couple of weeks is, we always talk about pedestrian safety, but pedestrian safety is more than just the vehicles, as we've been saying. It's these e-scooters and these e-bikes, and I guess maybe I'm more attentive to it because I almost got run over by an e-bike, me and my dog, a couple of weeks ago. So it'll be interesting to see in future iterations of this, in terms of asking pedestrians about the e-bikes and e-scooters. I know you've added that as a category, which I think is very important. But I think that also for pedestrian safety I know that we've done a lot of multimodal sidewalks that people are sharing the road with the bikes. Pedestrians are sharing with the bikes. But when you have this element of an e-bike or an e-scooter, how's that working out? So anyway, thank you. I look forward to seeing that information for Osceola County, by county. If you could send it to all of us, I think that'll be good, because I think everybody would like to see their own county broken down out of this too. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Are there other questions? Commissioner Semrad, you're recognized.
There we go. Thank you, Chairwoman Wilson. Thank you, Doctor. I had some questions regarding the sample. So tourists and visitors were excluded from participation, correct?
You had to be a resident.
So you had to be a resident, great. And then did you have to be 18 years old to take it?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, so then in terms of every study has limitations, of course, to it, right? And when we look at this sample, I think it's really important to acknowledge that while we had low percentage rates in terms of indicating microtransit in e-scooter and e-bike, we are also not sampling children. And so I think that on our roadways and on our sidewalks, we have many more e-bikes and e-scooters because we can't legally sample children. So I think that that's really important to acknowledge as a limitation to this study when we consider policy implications for the future. And if we really think about what we're doing in that category, These devices are motorized vehicles.
Mhm.
And what we're asking is adults who are driving cars, driving vehicles, also using the e-scooters and the e-bikes, who all know how to use the roadways. And so a lot of the knowledge that is reflected in answering these questions comes from a knowledge base of people who are capable of driving.
Mhm.
So we have a shadow population that is just void of being sampled and needs to be because they're children.
Yeah.
But we need to include in the future then questions pertaining to parents who are taking this survey. So structuring the survey, if you have that filter question
Mhm.
where you tick it and it sends you in a different direction as a parent to answer questions, I think it would be so helpful. And there's so many local municipalities and counties that are trying to come up with policy to prevent terrible accidents from happening,
Mhm.
that I think that that could provide really meaningful results in terms of policy making. So I wanted to say that. And then also, in terms of that 61%, where it said 61% of Orange County voters indicated that they would pay an infrastructure tax basically to improve their roadways. I want to know where those 61% are, because that's not what the results on the ballot show. So that led me back to another question regarding the sample
Mhm.
and looking at zip codes within areas to actually understand where people are indicating, yes, I would pay for that, and no, I would not pay for that, because it's not, the result on the survey doesn't reflect the result in the ballot box.
Yeah.
So did you include zip code stratification?
We do. We have zip code. We didn't do analysis for that specific question by it, and we know that there
Can
would
you
be.
pull that out in an analysis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We definitely could.
So that would be great. And then by chance, do you have the raw data that we could request for analyses of our own?
We do.
Yes. So I would like to put in a request for District 5, if we could please receive that raw data. And I am a statistician. I will love to see, what else is in the data. So thank you so much for your work. And again, I just want to emphasize those kids in the next round where
I appreciate that. I appreciate that feedback. It makes me, I'll have to get your phone number, because now I got to talk to you stats and more about the next survey. This is great.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Eubank, you were
Yeah,
recognized.
I was trying to write this down. What was your total amount of folks that you actually interviewed or got the data from?
2,536.
2,500, and that was over the region, right? You're
Yes.
saying 3 counties. And I want to go into a little bit more of that, because when I look at total population, that's about less than 1%, right? But my idea was, did you break it down by ethnicity? Did you, how much of it was reflective of what, I mean, I won't speak on behalf of Osceola and Seminole, but I know culturally the percentages in Orange County of folks in our community, and was it reflective of that? Because what I've noticed, and it was interesting because the numbers that you had and the numbers that the state has and the numbers that I've just recently been going through over the last 2 days were not quite where you were. So it begs me to differ, like where are we? I mean, there is a consensus of the e-bikes and the scooters. That's actually happening on the national level, much more of the lack of responsibility, what's happening. They're everywhere. It's like a negative tone. But I also I kind of want to know exactly where we're getting this, because as much as we try to promote this, we always hear people complain about transportation. People have their opinion of what they think of transportation, whether they think a Lynx bus is empty or it's full or it's not enough or it's too much, or all of these things. Is we're still losing that connectivity of what exactly the average person in our community is looking for in transportation. Because when I look at that 61%, we giggled at it, because that is nowhere near what has happened here multiple decades. All right. So like nowhere. And it's easy to just say yes, but do people really grasp what they're actually answering to? And then you mentioned quickly, but it wasn't on there, was people believe, over 70% actually believe that people who visit us should help pay into it. We'd really like to see that number, because the data we're given is no, but we believe so, because of the huge impact they do on our infrastructure. And not only that, our services, our water, but our roads. I mean, the amount of cars that are rented in Orange County every day. And how many, we average what, around 200 or 250,000 people in this town on a daily basis, more that live here, you know, and in addition to what live here. So you're saying, you know, they're getting around somehow, you know. So it'd be interesting to get some more raw data too. I would like to request that. Thank you.
Yes, happy to. Thank you. Those are great questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Yes, Commissioner.
One more question. You had a total number of surveys. How many declines did you have? Did you track that? I bet you'd find the rest of those people in that number.
I love how much conversation this sparked, and that's really, I think, part of the purpose is so that we do get to the points of the reasons why we're here and looking at regional solutions. Dr. Strickhauser, I also wanted to really quickly point out something that I thought was in, and then we're going to move away from this, but that first mile, last mile, all these years later was also something that I jotted down in the middle of this, right? So hearing the doctor's appointment issue sometimes was that first mile, last mile piece. And whether it's because our planning didn't put the service in a densely, you know, an area that had dense residential, or because that transit component has yet to answer that question. That's for us, right, to try to drill down. But I think it was good to see again that we're on the right track trying to solve those solutions.
Definitely.
So thank you so much. Any others? And we'll thank you. Wonderful job. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to move into public comments. These are general public comments. And this can be done either in person or via Zoom if you have filled out your comment card. And Ms. Smith, do we have any public comments?
We actually have 3 requests. I have one in person, and that is Nicholas Natale. Sorry, if I mispronounced it, I'm sorry.
Hello, my name is Nicholas Natale. My address is 10021 Shortwood Lane, 32836, Orlando, Florida. And I am a member of the Sunrise Movement Orlando, here to talk about the STAR plan, which Sunrise has talked with MetroPlan before about. It's our plan for insulating, we're putting in special tax districts, tax incremental financing districts around various corridors that would connect the city east to west, north and south. I heard, you know, incorporating the Sunrail, incorporating the Sunshine Corridor that is being proposed to sort of bring more connectivity throughout this county of Orange County. And as you see in the MetroPlan presentation we had, there is a desire for this. There is a desire for more public transportation options. There is this fear of other drivers and people going onto the road impaired. And we want to, you know, through Vision Zero, we want to reduce those accidents, and not considering putting in bus rapid transit, light rail, heavy rail is ignoring a big chunk of what we could be doing. And I know we have concerns about the whole amendment on property taxes, but honestly, we still need to try to do something. We need to shoot for the moon, as it says, like Artemis 3 over on the coast. We're shooting for the moon. Why can't we at least shoot for the moon? Maybe we can at least end up on the STAR plan if we don't hit it. And I've been living in Orlando most of my life, and it's always been car centric, cars that go everywhere, and it's a lot of congestion, and it's a lot of like, oh, do I really want to go to that? And thank you for I did not see the timer, but I hope we can work together towards a brighter future.
Thank you so much, Nicholas. And if you want to, I think the members of the board can be emailed if you had information about that, because I know it was Orange County had the pleasure of hearing from the individuals in this organization about what they're advocating for. So just if you would, and we can have that. Thank you.
And the next speaker is as a virtual speaker, and that's Jamie Mariana.
Jeannie, you're recognized. Last call for Jeannie.
She gave him permission to speak, so I'll move to the next person. It is Destin Correa.
Is Destin Correa online? You are recognized for public comment. Is there anybody online that is there for public comment that filled out a comment card? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Hello.
Oh,
Yeah. Hello.
hi.
Hi. So I'm Destin Correa. Hello, MetroPlan Orlando Board. My name
Hi.
is Destin Correa, and I live at 989 Vista Palma Way. I'm actually here with Sunrise Orlando, and I'm in support for the Star Rapid Transit Plan. And as a Valencia College student, I lived in Orlando for like basically my whole life, and I've taken the bus since I don't have a car, and it's hard, and it's a lot of long wait times. The transfer times are long, and it's an issue here, and it's especially with working families. And that's why I'm here today, because funding public transportation is one of the most direct things we can do to lower the costs here in Orange County. And it would build a more affordable, connected community. And the STAR plan would definitely fund rapid transit on 8 corridors like Colonial, Silver Star, Cimarron, Kirkman, iDrive, Sunrail, Sunshine, and Orange Blossom. And bus rapid transit would connect Colonial on COE downtown and UCF to jobs, education, and housing, and especially with Silver Star, since it's one of the highest used links lines, if I'm correct. And investing in these corridors on iDrive and Sunshine would even get tourists off the highways. And the STAR plan would also create a tax increment financing district along these corridors, and capturing these increased property value that comes from the transit investment and reinvesting it directly into building these lines. And I've read a bit into the 2050 Transit Vision Master Plan actually a few times, and I know like some of these corridors are already identified, and I know the STAR plan will help fund these and speed up the process for getting these implemented for the people of Orlando. And this is a transport plan with a citizens oversight board deciding how funds get spent as well. And it keeps rail on the line along with BRT, so we can build what each corridor actually needs. And I look forward to working together to fund public transit and make Orlando affordable for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your public comment. And we're going to give one last try for Jeannie, or was it Jeannie?
Seems like he's no longer online.
Okay. Thank you. Does that complete our list for public comment registrations at this time?
More.
Okay. Thank you so much. So our next meeting is scheduled for July 8th, 2026. I am at this time going to ask our executive director about what we do with the non-quorum issue, since we did not make quorum today. What?
Had a comment after Sunrise, but I missed you saying board comment.
Oh, my apologies. Commissioner Sentmer, you are recognized.
Thank you. So I just wanted to say to Sunrise, and so this Thursday in Winter Park at the community center, we're having at 6 o'clock is the District 5 TransMac meeting that we're hosting, and we have endorsed and are supporting the Sunrise effort to look at rapid bus routes through specific areas of Orange County, which why, Dr. Sarah, it would be very interesting to learn what those zip code areas are that are supportive of paying into infrastructure. But you know, we are trying to, in lieu of threat of property tax reform, we definitely identify with and understand the transportation challenges. And so this is a plan that has been used in other areas of Florida, including Miami. Sunrise has done their due diligence to get letters of recommendation from the initiators, as well as the former elected officials that passed it and the existing elected officials who represent it in their rapid plans. So we submitted a commissioner's report. We're hoping to get that to the Board of County Commissioners where we can further evaluate what those potential pocket areas might be. And so we're excited also about the STAR plan. And I just wanted to say that. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I think back on the day that I had to strong arm you into supporting a potential infrastructure surtax for the ballot. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. We didn't have a majority vote. That would have been a potential funding source for bus rapid transit amongst other investments. But
and it wasn't that much of a strong arm.
No, I know. I'm just kidding.
It wasn't.
All right, let me make sure there are any other board comments. Yes, sir. You are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a quick question for Gary. In your comments around the AMPO and the Build America Act, is there any idea on or an estimate on when the timing is we expect that to go to the floor and get approved, and how that would affect the funding cycle and when it would kick in?
Well, you know, the IIJA expires September 30th, and everyone was hopeful that we would have a new surface transportation bill this year. I heard on an ample policy committee meeting last week that that's not likely to happen, that there'll just be continuing extensions, as we've had extensions in the past with federal transportation bills. The folks from AMPO don't think that's necessarily a bad thing if there are some extensions. In fact, they sort of see some value in that to continue to work it. So it's most likely to be sometime next year, but I do have a meeting this afternoon with ample policy, and so I can report back to you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. It's a good question, and look forward to hearing about that. Are there any other board comments, board reporting? All right.
Wilson, I just wanted to ask Commissioner Samrad, you said Thursday night is that meeting tomorrow, Thursday tomorrow, or is it next week, Thursday?
Yes, sir. It's tomorrow.
And what time is that?
6 p.m. in Winter Park.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And I believe we'll be hearing also from Mayor DeCiccio from Winter Park and elected officials, perhaps Mayor Lowndes and Maitland as well, talking about some of their traffic concerns.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. So a reminder, next board meeting is July 8th at July 8th. We are hopeful to make quorum for that one. And I just, a point of privilege,
Chairwoman Wilson, I just wanted to let you know there was a breakfast in Eatonville where both mayors were in attendance. So there was a major for Juneteenth this morning. So that probably caused some hiccups in then Seminole County.
Okay. Just procedurally, I want to make sure that I get some direction from Mr. Hutman.
Well, we have two items that we weren't able to act on. One was the consent agenda, and that's the one that is a little bit more critical than the information items, simply for acknowledgement. But I spoke with Jason before the meeting started, and he's not anticipating a budget amendment at the year end. May still happen, so we'll have to deal with that if it comes forward that way. The other is the approval by the board of the new general planning consultant contracts, so those won't get approved. And the final one is the streetlight contract extension, which expires this month. And so we were looking to extend that through December, so we won't be able to do that. But we'll do what we can to work around those issues.
Great, thank you so much. I know there's timelines, I'm trying to stick with those. So just as a reminder for that, if you can't make the whole meeting, get here in time for those important pieces. And I know I'm preaching to the choir since you're the people that showed up today. And with that, no further business, I will call the meeting adjourned. Thank you.